Guys, welcome back to Lab Cyber, and today I do have a very interesting story to share with you from the world of cyber espionage, because apparently about a week ago, the FBI were finally able to take down Russia's most elite hacking group. Now, it turns out that the FBI had actually been tracking this group for close to 2 decades, almost 20 years. That is insane if you think about it. Now, when I say they took down this group, I'm not saying that they physically arrested the members of this group. What I mean is that they were able to destroy the malware that this group had actually invented to infect the victims. Okay, now I've got several tabs in here. I'm going to give you the most important facts of this story. I'm not going to make this video way too long. So let's start off first of all from the United States Department of Justice, and it says here that the Justice Department announces court-authorized disruption of snake malware network controlled by Russia's Federal Security Service. So the name of the malware that this gang was using was called Snake. We're going to talk about Snake a bit later, but one thing I want you to understand is that this gang wasn't just your regular black hat gang. This was a gang sponsored directly by the Russian FSB, which is kind of like the modern day KGB. So effectively, this gang was sponsored and supported by the Russian government themselves. Now, one thing you need to understand is that there is nothing unusual about this. Every country, whether it's America, Canada, UK, India, China, Israel, Iran, they'll all have their cyber gangs that they support and sponsor. Think of them as your cyber spies. Like in the real world, we have spies, like, Russia has spies in America, America has spies in Russia, and so on. It's the exact same thing in the cyber world as well. All these countries have their gangs that they sponsor and support in the hopes that these cyber gangs can steal information from their competitors, enemies, and so on. Now, to give you an idea of who these guys are, there's actually 3 of them wanted by the FBI. You've got Pavel Alexandrovich, Mikhail Mikhailovich, and Marat Varovich. These are just 3 of the members of this notorious Russian group known as Turla. Now, we don't know how far back Turla exist. They've existed for many years now, apparently, and they have actually been behind so many hacks, not just in the United States, but also members of NATO, countries like Germany, France. They've had their own Ministry of Defense websites hacked, and they all blamed Turla. Now, Turla goes way back to, I think, like 2004. That was the first time the snake malware that they invented was actually detected. Now, what exactly is this snake malware that I keep talking about? Snake is actually one of the most advanced. In fact, according to the FBI, they said that we consider Snake to be the most sophisticated cyber espionage tool in the FSB's arsenal. So we're talking about an extremely highly advanced piece of malware here. Now, the thing about Snake was that it had a very strong ability to achieve a rare level of stealth in its host components and network communication. So if your computer was infected by Snake, and even if you have the best anti-malware, the most updated anti-malware running on your system, it was highly unlikely that it will be able to detect the presence of Snake, because Snake was designed to be extremely stealthy. Now, Snake was primarily designed to steal information from the computers it had infected, and of course send this information back to the hackers. However, there is also one other thing that Snake was able to do, and that is to create a peer-to-peer network with other computers that had been infected by Snake. So say, for example, your computer has Snake on it. My own computer is also been infected with Snake. Our computers will be able to exchange information. And the way this exchange was done, it was done in such a silent and stealthy manner that it was extremely hard to detect the presence of this malware. Now, how is it that the FBI were finally able to detect the presence of the malware? We don't know. It doesn't say this anywhere, but it is believed that the FBI knew about this malware way back in the year 2004. However, due to the complexity and the high levels of sophistication of this malware, the FBI were unable to discover how it actually works. All they knew was that, okay, it infects computers, it steals information, sends the information back to the hackers. And to make things even worse was the fact that the Turla group, the group behind this particular piece of malware, they had a very small number or list of victims that they were using to infect with this piece of malware. So it's not like they were just, going all gang ho crazy, infecting so many computers with the malware. No, they had very select few victims, and these victims would be computers belonging to countries in NATO, journalists, heads of government, things like that. So they had a highly select group of victims which they would use this malware on, which is of course very, very smart, because the less computers you infect with a piece of malware, the less likely it is to be detected, and the less likely that whoever even detects the presence of the malware will be able to figure out how it actually works. Now, according to the FBI, the FSB began developing Snake as Ouroboros. That was the very, very first name given to Snake, and I love how they come up with all these very dramatic names, Snake, Ouroboros, and so on. So they developed Ouroboros back in the late 2003, and development of the initial versions of the implant appeared to be completed around early 2004. With cyber operations first conducted using the implant shortly thereafter. The name Ouroboros is appropriate because the FSB cycled it through nearly constant stages of upgrade and development, even after public disclosures, instead of abandoning it. So basically, we're talking about a highly sophisticated piece of malware that has undergone years of upgrades and redevelopment. Now, talking about victimization, like I said, this particular piece of malware was used on members of NATO. And according to the FBI, they said that they identified Snake infrastructure in over 50 countries across North America, South America, Europe, Africa, Asia, Australia, to include the United States and Russia itself. Now, it says here that although Snake leverages infrastructure across all industries, its targeting is purposeful and tactical in nature. For instance, if an infected system did not respond to Snake communications, the FSB actors would strategically reinfect it within days. So like I said, the Snake malware was used strategically on specific computers belonging to specific people and in specific industries. Now, how exactly did the FBI detect and eventually take down Snake? Well, it says here right now that the FBI developed a tool called Perseus. Again, another very, very dramatic name. Basically, it's a Greek hero who slayed monsters. So it says between 2016 and 2022, FBI officials identified the IP addresses of 8 compromised computers in the US located in California, Georgia, Connecticut, New York, Oregon, South Carolina, and Maryland. So with the victim's consent, the FBI obtained remote access to some of the compromised machines and monitored each for years at a time. This is simply insane. All the FBI knew was that, okay, these computers have Snake infected on them, but they were not able to actually understand how Snake operated because they were not able to get access to its code until apparently over here it says capitalizing on mistakes. Although the Snake implant as a whole is a highly sophisticated espionage tool, it does not escape human error. A tool like Snake requires more familiarity and expertise to use correctly, and in several instances, Snake operators neglected to use it as designed. So various mistakes in its development and operation provided us with a foothold into the inner workings of Snake and were key factors in development of capabilities that have allowed for tracking Snake and the manipulation of its data. So basically, my guess here is that Turla had new members that came in. They were like, new members, inexperienced, who did not use Snake as it was intended to be used. Maybe they used it for other purposes. Now, because the FBI were already tracking how the malware was being used, because it wasn't used as it was intended to be, the FBI were then eventually able to understand how it worked, and they then developed their own tool called Perseus. Okay, now the FBI used its Perseus tool to mimic Snake's built-in commands, which when transmitted by Perseus from an FBI computer will terminate the Snake application, and in addition permanently disable the Snake malware by overwriting vital components of the Snake implant without affecting any legitimate applications or files on the subject computer. So basically, the FBI used Perseus to trick the Snake malware to self-delete itself on the very computers it had infected, and the FBI says it believes this action has permanently disabled the Russian-controlled malware on infected machines and will neutralize the Russian government's ability to further access the Snake malware currently installed on the compromised computers. So this is very, very, very fascinating. The fact that it took them almost 20 years to finally figure out how this malware actually worked is insane. Okay, and normally I don't give much praise to the FBI or the CIA, but in this case I'm gonna give them props. Okay, this was a well executed operation, even though it took them many years, but they finally were able to take down this particular nasty piece of malware from the Russian gang called Turla. Now, I should just also say that, not to dampen anyone's happiness or the celebration or anything like that, but the thing is, this is just one battle won in the cyber espionage war. The truth is, the Russian government will go back and they're going to come up with a new kind of malware. Okay, there's always new kinds of malware being developed. So this is just one victory in a war or in a battle that will last for many years, many decades, maybe even forever, who knows. But kudos to the FBI once again for this particular operation. It's insane how patient they were for almost 20 years. They were simply monitoring and just waiting for one of the Russian hackers to make a mistake. They made a mistake, and then they were able to capitalize on that mistake and developed Perseus, which they then used to then neutralize the snake malware. So I'm going to have the links to all these information down in the description box below if you're interested in reading more about this very fascinating story. But if you enjoyed today's video, please do give it a thumbs up, share this video with anyone who may feel might benefit from it. And of course, if you're new here to the channel, welcome. My name is Alex. This is Lab Cyberware. I discuss cybersecurity related topics and news. So if you enjoy what you've heard or seen here today, please do subscribe to the channel and hit the bell so you're notified whenever I upload a new video. Stay safe out there, and I'll talk to you next time. Cheers.